car and Dale unhappy is amazing. I've never heard that in my life, and that's something. So, why was Dale stalling? Why could he not? Was he literally just like was that conversation just so tough with Bud Moore?
Yeah, I believe
that he couldn't do it.
I believe so. He just did not. I believe he did not want to hurt Bud and didn't, because Bud was a great guy. I mean, he was World War II veteran and all that. Bud was tough enough to take it, but he was just a great guy. He was a genuine gentleman. Everybody loved him, and yeah, I believe that because it just kept going on. I'd ask Dale at the track, have you talked to Bud? No, I got it. I handle it. I'll handle it. Like, if he told you I'll handle it, you better just drop it and let it go, because he didn't want to discuss it anymore. It's like, okay, all right.
Oh, trust me. I mean, like when you're talking about that, it seems to me like you telling Dale Earnhardt what directions, how we're going to unlock the gate and how we're, those things that everybody that's been on our show told, no, this is the way Dale, he organized how things were going to work out. And so my last question though for this though, David, is what did you want? What you have influence in the matter. You sat in the car with Dale Earnhardt and your boss,
Right.
and you also had a relationship with both Bud and Richard. Where were you?
See, I didn't even really know Richard at the time. I knew who he was because Richard was still driving. Bud was the first car owner that I really knew.
The Red Sox are trying for their fourth straight victory.
I like Bud, but
hi again, everybody. I'm Dwayne Kuiper with Mike Krukow, and again, it looks like a great evening for a ball game.
But it really does, Kuiper, and I'm anxious to get this one started.
We should have a good one. Ready to throw the game's first pitch, Bronson Arroyo. Tonight's American League game is between the Anaheim Angels and the Boston Red Sox. Here's the game's first batter, Sean Figgin.
I was 3 months older than him.
This guy isn't great against right-handed pitching.
I knew at that time I had found out a lot of his background. I mean, here's the guy that never, finished 7th or 8th grade. He threw it all out there to do what he wanted to do, and I mean, it's an incredible story.
What was his reaction to you going down there and doing that instead of him?
What was his reaction? Oh yeah. Well, that was. So I leave Spartanburg after talking to Bud for however long, and get back in my car, and I'm driving back, and I'm going, oh God, now I got to tell Dale that I've told him. And I know how that's going to go. So I waited till I got all the way back to Greensboro, and by then it's probably about 7 o'clock or so at night, and I'm hoping that Dale's at the house and whatnot.
In his recliner.
Yeah. And I did get a hold of him, and I said, well, I just need to let you know I was down in Spartanburg, and I had to tell Bud. David, I told you. And I mean, he was hot. He was mad. And I said, Dale, you just gave me no choice. You kept telling me you were going to do it.
Sometimes you try to make
a chase your business. I got O'Dear and Watson pounding on me every week. I had to do what I was told. And, so that part's done. So he hung up on me, as I remember.
Hung up on by Dale Earnhardt.
Oh, I probably got almost as many butt chewings as Junior did in my time.
He goes with the pitch, and it's a fly ball.
I bet you got more.
I got some severe ones, I know that. But
here's the lineup the manager is sending out.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he called Bud right away that night. But I know they talked before the next race, whatever that was. So, man, that night I was like, I think I slipped back into my old college days, and I might have self-medicated with cannabis or something, just to, like, wow, you can't make this up. I got, it just, there was no wind to it, and then I had to let Richmond know he wasn't getting in the car. And,
ooh, how'd that go?
Well, he wasn't happy, but I mean, he understood. I just loved him to death. Quite honestly, I think if he would have gotten in that 15, and if we could have got him and Dale kind of paired up as a marketing concept and whatnot, the relationship, and they had a good one, but I don't know, man, maybe this is just me dreaming, but I think we could have maybe changed or altered the future of Tim, you know, because he wandered off the path later on, but man, he would have been great for the sport. You had Davey Allison, you had Tim Richmond, you had Dale, and those guys were incredible for the sport.
1-2 the count.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question to imagine, you know, the possibilities there, David, for Tim.
Outside for a ball.
And I say that because as a little boy, I remember Dad used to have these lake parties every summer. And I mean, they made T-shirts and gave them out.
He picked that ball up right off the bat for an easy out.
It was a big deal. You don't think of Dale Earnhardt like that. You know, that kind of guy that was partying and having fun and making T-shirts and having all his buddies over. But he did, and Ricky Rudd and Tim would be there all day, hanging out, and so the relationships were genuine and real, but they went beyond the racetrack for sure.
Yeah, I got shot in the back with a Roman candle at one of those parties by your dad.
Of course you will.
Well, okay, you can't go past that. You got to tell them.
Yeah.
Who shot you with a Roman candle?
Dale did.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, you should have called Bud. I mean, he had to teach you a lesson.
Oh,
Okay, hold on. So for Tim Richmond to wander off the path, it means that he had to have been on the path first. So was he on the path? Was he?
Oh, yeah.
Had he reached that? All the stuff that we know about Tim Richmond, was that how he was at that time?
Well, the Tim that I knew, so he came over from IndyCar. I think he had been Rookie of the Year at 500 the year before. I don't remember. That must have been about 83 or 4 or somewhere in there. And the Tim that I got to know, that I came to know, he was very much a fun-loving guy, but he wanted to race and he wanted to beat Earnhardt. He wanted to beat everybody. He wanted to win too. He just had a different style about him. He was a media guy's dream. I mean, you didn't have to dress him up or polish anything. He was just like. So when he would get out of the car during practice sessions and whatnot, he'd go to the press room and hang out. That's what he did. I mean, but he did it for a reason. It wasn't accidental.
That's crazy. I can't imagine the guys doing that.
Yeah.
So looking at this story, and I know we spent so much time on it, but it's such a dynamic, it's such an important part of Dale Earnhardt's career trajectory.
It changed a lot of history. It did.
Yeah, there was people, although people were kind of down on Dale as far as his over-aggressiveness, there was also a lot of teams that were interested in him.
Yep.
And I know you and I have discussed that a little bit. Who are some of these teams that were interested? And elaborate on that more, because I've heard things about that Americana Hotel up there by Wrangler and Junior Johnson, possibly a ripped-up contract.
You've heard too much.
He delivers.
There was some very clandestine meetings at that hotel that T. Wayne Robertson was involved with, because T. Wayne was pulling a lot of strings in the sport at that time. He was my mentor. But Junior was involved. Junior Johnson was definitely involved.
He's on with a 2-out
I
single.
remember
Wanting Dale Earnhardt, correct?
Yes, absolutely. There was talk about, at that time, a 2-car team. And Dale being in one of Junior's. And Wrangler just didn't want to go for that at the time.
They didn't want to go to Junior Johnson's team.
They didn't want to go for a 2-car team
Or a 2-car team.
like that. They knew they had this commitment to Bud, and they had to live it out. And frankly, Wrangler didn't have the budget for that long term. Even as cheap as it was then, I mean, they still didn't have those kinds of budgets. Well, I also remember Dave calling me one time and saying, "Hey, can you come down to the lake? There's somebody I'd like to sit with and have you talk to about a new team cropping up and whatnot." And I don't know all these players and whatnot, but I went down there and we sat, and there's this young executive guy who Dale obviously knew him. And we're sitting out. I remember sitting out on the kind of the back deck there of the lake and looking around and whatnot. And this guy's pitching his case for a brand new team that he wanted to start up, and he wanted to build it around Dale. And it was Rick Hendricks. And at that time, Rick wasn't, as I remember, wasn't even a team owner, or maybe he toyed with it a little or something. But
gets the strike on the inside.
so that, yes, there was a lot of interest in Dale. Junior was, besides Richard, Junior was probably the front runner. But it was ironic because Junior was the same one that was pushing Richard to be a team owner, and I know Junior was a real mentor to Richard becoming a team owner at that time. So,
Which ironically, I think he didn't once the deal kind of went away with Wrangler and Junior. From what I've heard, it was Junior that steered Richard and Dale.
Yeah, he very much said, get with Richard, he'll do it right. He's a good, he's solid, and you're absolutely right. Yep.
Wow, that's interesting about Junior Johnson. I mean, like, that takes a man to do that. I mean, like, not a lot of people would miss out. It's like missing out on the hot girl, and then just give, and then when she didn't pick you, then say, well, you know who you should go? My buddy over here.
Well, they were that close to being. It was that close to being Dale Earnhardt and Junior Johnson, right?
It was close. It was very close. And Junior and T. Wayne, like I said, they were really pulling a lot of strings in the sport, especially from the marketing side and all of that. Obviously, the Francis were running the sport, but from the marketing side of it, T. Wayne and Junior were connected at the hip, and yeah, it was an interesting time. And man, I'm all brand new at this time, coming in from a rodeo program. I'm like, heck, I don't. Who's on first, But looking back, you can see how it altered. So, I mean, things could have gone a lot of different ways, and who knows?
Can I ask one more thing just to make this one bit more complicated as far as all this? Had you already started working with Willie Nelson? And when did Willie Nelson become part of the marketing campaign? Because Willie and Dale, and I guess Richard, right?
Right.
And I believe you even might have toured with Willie Nelson, because he was a Wrangler guy in the early 80s.
Right. That was my tour. I did initiate that, but that didn't come until
later.
About a year later or so. I'm going to say 85 or so.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
That came along, and so yeah, that was interesting because Dale didn't really like Willie in the beginning. He was. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I shouldn't say he didn't like him, because he never did say that, but he was a little standoffish. And of course, Richard's right in there, like, "Hey, Willie."
What do you was it because Willie offered him a joint?
Well, that did happen.
Good strike.
Yes.
That did happen. I mean, anybody that was ever around Willie, that probably. Willie offered Ted Turner one.
Third out, we go to the bottom of the inning.
Never saw Ted again.
After 2.5, the game is scoreless.
Oh man!
But we were doing a photo shoot, and it's probably that ad you remember seeing where it's Willie in the middle and Dale. They all got their hands up, and Willie is holding.
Sometimes you try to make a hit chase your pitch.
During that photo shoot, out it came, and of course, neither one of them, none of us participated at the time because it wasn't. But Willie didn't care; it didn't stop.
Well, what do you think it was that Dad, Dad and Willie didn't click right away? Because Dad was pretty, clicked with other people.
Oh yeah,
in the music industry.
I think part of it was. I think your dad was maybe a little apprehensive about. Is this going to take a lot of focus off of our race program and whatnot? Because months later, you remember the Ballmans, Ed and Vivian Ballman, and he was chairman of the board of Wrangler. They had a party at their house. They had a bunch of people, and your dad and Teresa were there, and Richard and Judy, and Willie was there. And your dad and Willie spent a lot of time just sitting together talking, and it was very casual. It was completely different demeanor. So I don't know what it was for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because we got on the topic of some of those things with everybody in on Dale Earnhardt, and then you had Junior and Hodgson, and you had all these different rides happening, things like that. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the time right now to ask you, Americana Hotel, did it happen? Did the contract get ripped up? Myth or fact?
As I remember, because I don't think I was in the room at that time, but I think it did happen.
What are we talking about?
Well, y'all have to give us some more.
Supposedly Junior Johnson had a contract.
Yes. Junior, as I remember the story, had brought a contract for Wrangler and Dale to sign. And I think it was Bob O'Dear, because he was president of the company. And Bob was very much a type A guy. And I think it just got down to, no, we're not going to do it. And this is going nowhere.
He makes the catch.
Wow. I do believe that's true. I never witnessed it, but I heard the same version as you did.
Who are y'all saying ripped it up, though?
Wrangler.
Wrangler ripped it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that close to happening where Junior was going to have
this was very close.
Advisor was coming in.
Yeah, this was very close, because we were having conversations about it for a couple of weeks before that meeting ever took place. And of course, this was, they called it the silly season, and it's kicking up in the summertime. In those days, that's when silly season would fire up, and rumors are everywhere where Dale's going. Junior was the leading candidate, but Richard, Mr. Cool, Elvis Childress, was sitting there, taking his time and taking his directions from Junior, and he played it right, and it ended up to, I think, the way it was supposed to.
Wow.
He makes a tremendous grab.
We have a lot more of these stories to come. But first, Dale.
Right now across the country, a lot of us are at home. Some parents are trying to find activities for their kids and keep them busy. Many are just sticking the iPad in front of them. Well, if you think it's impossible to get a kid to put down that cell phone or iPad and do something that's good for their brain, you're wrong. It is possible. Let's take a second to talk about KiwiCo. It's a science and art subscription box for kids, tested by kids, and it's more fun than any game they can play. And it's available for all age groups. Me and Isla have opened up one of these boxes and had a lot of fun with it. It's very intuitive. She loves it. She's playing a game but learning at the same time. And you can watch that happening right there with your own eyes. As a parent, it can be hard to find creative and new things to keep your child busy and challenge them outside of school. KiwiCo solves that problem, and you can spend quality time tackling projects together at home. Your child can get super cool hands-on science and art projects delivered to their door every month. What kid doesn't love to get mail? And hey, if you don't want to commit to the subscription just yet, you can learn about individual projects from KiwiCo's store. There are different crates for kids of all ages, so there's something for every kid on your list. Isla is about to turn 2, so she's using the koala crate. That's for ages from 2 to 4. KiwiCo is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. There's something for every kid or kid at heart at KiwiCo. Get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/Dale Jr. That's KiwiCo spelled Kiwico. Kiwico.com/Dale Jr.
Your stories are incredible.
They are.
And you just mentioned silly season, because that was probably one of the biggest silly seasons. I've already communicated with you. If Dale and them don't know some of the stories here, and I'm curious to know which ones they know or don't know. Can you tell us about one of the silliest things that happened? It wasn't silly season. There's a story about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so Dale's birthday was always around Martin's Day. Yeah, the April race. That will be coming up here in a week or so. Oh, yeah. And as I remember right, I felt like I owed him a payback for something. I don't know what. But
Roman candle in the back. I don't know.
Yeah, there's something. And I got a hold of one of those singing telegram places in Greensboro, and I said,
Outside.
what do you have on your menu there? And I want to embarrass somebody a little. I didn't tell them who or what, but I want to embarrass somebody a little bit, and I don't particularly want somebody that's real attractive even to make
The appeal goes
to make it more embarrassing.
Sticks out.
The guy said, I got just the thing for you. He said, I got this lady who does a Wonder Woman singing telegram. She dresses up in a red and blue costume with a red cape. And I said, perfect. I said, here's the deal. And so I had Joe Whitlock get her set up with a garage pass. So I didn't want him to trace it back to me.
And real quick, Joe Whitlock was Dale's PR guy at the time, right? His PR.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
Yep. And so Sunday morning, Dale kind of had a ritual, and this is in the days, I'll tell you how long ago it was. He wanted to be hung out in his van. He wanted to eat a peanut butter, mayonnaise, and banana sandwich, drink a sun pop, and take a nap. And actually, the sandwiches are pretty good. I got to like.
What was that sandwich again?
Peanut butter.
Tell everybody.
Peanut butter, mayonnaise, and banana.
Dang, we thought Dale Jr. was weird just with the banana and mayo. Dale Earnhardt took it a whole nother level with the peanut butter.
Yeah, one more protein.
He was thinking about nutrients, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then he wanted to take a nap in his van because, everybody drove to those races. And so we had made up a reason why he had to be at the hauler like an hour before the race. And you could hear, I knew when the gal was coming, and I told him, I said, don't get her there till about an hour before the race starts, so that the grandstands in the front stretch are full of race fans. And here she comes. They walked her right up pit road, and you remember, well, it's probably still the same in Martinsville. Pit road is really close to the grandstand.
Smack in front of him, yes.
And she's got this gigantic array of balloons and a big sash. Happy birthday, Dale.
The game is scoreless.
And the fans are going ape. And so she gets up there. We had a bunch of the camera guys tipped off. So she sings to him and does a couple of things and puts the sash on him. And, he was pretty good sport about it. He knew who had done it. But Teresa was mad. She
I don't believe that.
I got a pretty good butt chewing from her about how unprofessional it was. I said, yeah, you're probably right. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but it was really fun. And so the last thing about that is Dale wanders off, and everybody, Dick Gazaway, who was the sheriff at that time, he ran everything for NASCAR. He was the boss. He came over there and, what the hell, we don't do that. And I'm like, man, I hear you. I don't know what happened. I don't know where that happened. I said, Wrangler is so embarrassed, we would never do it.
I collect all these pictures of that, and I've seen.
Is that it?
Oh, is that it?
Awesome.
Yeah,
look at your group me.
I've got all kinds of pictures.
Yes.
Matthew's showing us the picture. That is to open up
yeah. And so I've seen that picture for years, and I had no idea I knew it was his birthday and all that, but I figured in my mind that was happening like after practice on a Friday.
I was raced it.
Wow. I can't believe if you did that to Dale Earnhardt in 1998, he would have not been a good sport.
No.
Wow, he was a good sport.
Well, so Mr. and Mrs. Ballman were there, and she loved it. She was the best sport. She was the chairman's wife of Wrangler and Bluebell. and she loved Dale, but she was the best sport about anything, and so she was laughing. Dale had
This
to
guy
laugh.
has a great approach to hitting, and that
But
makes him just a
Teresa
pretty
was not
special
laughing.
hitter.
It wasn't.
I imagine.
So what were prank wars like with Dale Earnhardt? I mean, because you said you had to get him back for something. I mean, did you expect retaliation and things like that?
To the right.
Oh,
What
yeah.
did he do to you ever?
Sure. I probably got it. I don't remember. I mean, one of his favorite things to do is just walk up behind you and give you
back up the
that pinch right under here in the fleshy part of your arm. And I mean, he didn't let go. He pinched you enough to where it turned green, yellow for about 2 weeks, you know. And he loved that. That was one of his. He just
takes a pitch
tweak
just
it
off
and
the
hang
plate,
on.
1-0.
But
He was also put sardines under the seat of Rusty's race car, doing stuff like
well,
that. That's pretty
we
rude.
used to do things to Richard Childress. Childress loves to be dressed absolutely perfect.
That'll do
That's-
it for
he
the
loves-
Angels in the sixth.
And
After 5.5, the
he
game
would
is
come
scoreless.
in, we'd have all these different shirts made for him, and they'd be, embroidered with the sponsors. But we always had to get him a variety
Fastball
of colors because he had to have, he couldn't just have one color. He had to. Well, when he'd come in with a new shirt,
on the ground. cuts it
Dale
off,
would be like, well,
and he's
that's an interesting look for you, Richard. And then he'd leave. And while Richard would stand in there and go, what's wrong with you? What's and he just jacked with him all the time. He'd put hot sauce in his coffee in race morning. Richard came to me one time before a race at Dover, and he's like, man, you got any anything for heartburn? He said, man, I'm tore up this morning. Well, his coffee had probably had 2 thimbles full of Tabasco sauce in it by the time he finished it. But it just depended on, Dale would.
The count is
It was,
full.
there was a couple Dales. And sometimes when he was in a great mood, man, it was
gives up
a
the
lot of
walk.
fun. And when he wasn't, it wasn't a lot of fun.
What would affect his mood the most?
Jackson steps into the
Oh,
batter's box.
performance on the track.
This righty is no
How you
slouch
ran.
in the batter's
No
box.
good.
Sound familiar, Mike?
Oh,
Yes, it does. And I mean, it would affect the whole week. If we ran like crap, Dale Jr., man, he's just like, God, this is going to be a terrible week.
yeah.
But when we were coming off a good finish, good win, good whatever, man, it was
Great week.
set the tone, boy. We were going to throw down.
Yeah.
It's all about the race.
Redskins did that too.
The double play.
Cut that double
Now,
play
you,
was
you
smooth
you look at
as
times
just
where they were
like
pranking
practice.
each other, but then, and Dale was a good egg. But there's a story you have
After
about a
five,
race,
no
I believe it
score
was
here.
Dover,
Oh, yeah.
where
I love
Dale
it, Jack.
Earnhardt wasn't too happy, and it had nothing to do with the prank. But
No.
Richard Childress was involved too. Tell me
Oh,
about it.
yeah. It was the
Hit
last
towards
time
the
we
short.
ever
He
did that.
dives and makes a fantastic catch.
So this is the Goodwrench days now. And, we always went out of the way to make, because Goodwrench was a great primary sponsor, and we wanted them to feel
The Angels have
as
two right-handers
close
getting
and
ready
as
in
a
the
part of
pen.
the team as possible at all times. I mean, I think every team tried to do that. And so, and we always had some monitors and headsets for them to wear, and they'd
That
be
one
up in the
splits
suites,
the
and they could listen
outfielder.
to Dale. And I don't remember why, but
He's
at
headed to
Dover,
second.
for whatever reason, they ended
A
up
double.
with one of the actual
He sweet
team
stroked that
radios.
pitch in the outfield for a 2-base hit.
That,
Oh,
and yeah.
sponsor up in
No,
the suite.
no headsets, just the radio, and they took it to the suite. Oh yeah, this gets really.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, and so I know that the spotters have a hard time seeing the track from both ends, at least in those days at Dover. So Richard sent me to the between 1 and 2 and get up in the very top of the grandstands
Fastball
and
misses
kind of be the
downstairs.
backup set of eyes. And so I'm not in the pits and I'm not down there around everything. Race star, I'm praying to God
Do
nothing
not want
happens
to waste
that
too
I
many of
have
these
to do.
chances. Let's see if they can come through with a big hit right now. Learn
He's
scoring
going to
position.
get you. And Dover's pretty intense too, obviously.
Pitch
So,
misses. He's hitting 293.
race
with
kicks
17
off.
long
We're
balls
going
and
about 100
52
laps
runs
or
batted in.
more, and I don't remember. We weren't running great, but we
2-2
weren't bad.
the count.
they come in for a pit. The car changes somehow or another.
It's a full count.
I think he was
Fact, the
tight.
pitcher and catcher have a strategy.
He was on the
So
ring, and
far, the
Andy
batters are
was
taking
the
this
crew
pitch.
chief at that time, Peter.
Andy Petrie.
And Dale's on the radio with him,
Fox always seemed to
not
come
liking
around to hurt
things,
you.
but
Fox
he didn't
come out
talk
of
a
batter,
lot.
just never gets back into the at-bat.
Race is going on, maybe 150, maybe 200. It wasn't halfway yet. And all of a sudden, across our radio channel, it's like we could hear this clinking of glasses and dishes, and then we can hear two ladies talking about their grandchildren.
That was a perfect pitch.
And-
On the edge of
and
strike, so the
then-
batter swung right through it.
Somebody's talking about an addition on their house. and- yeah, and then Dale's out there making
He's out there
fun
sawing on it.
at Dover of
Now,
all
there's a
places.
perfect example of sound
And
fundamentals. He did
man,
not
I
try
mean,
to do too
Richard!
much.
P.S. Richard. I mean, and Richard doesn't know. None of us have a clue what. I thought
The
somebody's
skipper has pulled the infield
ham
in.
radio or something bled over on our. You know,
As a
I've
manager,
heard that
you hate
happen
to see this guy
before.
come up. His speed makes
And
him a
it goes on
constant
for a
threat.
while. Well, JR was in our pits, and he figured out that it was the radio the GM folks took to the suite, and they had keyed the mic open somehow. And I mean, I bet it went on for 50 laps or more.
Wow.
Oh,
cow.
man. Oh, Lord.
Wow.
Man.
So,
They never got another radio, I can tell you.
no.
Fastball
So,
misses
Dale
low
Jr.,
for a
what
ball.
was it that used to happen
All
to
this guy's
you at
gotta do is hit the
Daytona?
ball
It seemed
marginally,
like
think
every
Nation
time
scored
we
the run
went
from
there,
third
there was
easy.
some sort of bleed over radio, and you just, and I don't
taken
even
for a
remember
ball.
exactly what they were saying, but it seemed like that at Daytona in specific, that you would have that
Balls and
same
no
problem while you were driving.
Taken for
Yeah,
a ball.
I don't know who's responsible for it at the time, but the sport got to where they were publishing the radio frequencies of all the teams,
Right.
Free ball.
which is really stupid to do. And so here's all the frequencies if you want to know what and that allowed anybody that had a two-way radio to come on your frequency and
Nothing
communicate.
positive comes out of this guy.
And so they didn't even have to be at the track. This might be somebody, across the street or in a neighborhood downtown that had a strong enough signal to be able to, communicate with you while they could be watching the race on their TV. And Daytona for like 2 years, and it was not. They wouldn't come on there and talk the entire race. It would just be very rare, but so clear, and it was obvious that they knew that you knew that they were trying to, they weren't part of the team, and they were like, hey Dale, get after it, man, or come on Junior, get up on the wheel now, buddy, woo. They were just.
And to be clear, so you knew that wasn't Pops.
I knew that wasn't somebody on our team, but they knew that they were giving themselves away, and they played into it. It was so annoying, but there was nothing you could do but ignore it. So if you ignored it, maybe they would assume they're not getting through, and they would eventually stop. There was a race that, like talking about bleeding over, David, we would go to New Hampshire. This happened quite a bit. There were so many frequencies flying through the air. You got TV sending signals everywhere to people on pit road and camera guys over here and there. Everything's waves, and no hardwired stuff. You got people out in the souvenir rigs selling stuff, talking on radios to each other. Security guys. I mean, there's two-way radio communication happening all across the racetrack during the race, and it doesn't even involve the race team. And we would go to New Hampshire, and people would be talking about the guys in the souvenir rigs be talking to each other about souvenirs they're selling. Well, we run out of this hat, man. I don't know. We got to run over to the truck to get another box of them hat. We're out of those. Serial number 2356789 hats. I just got a rejected credit card from Jamie Bowers. Jamie Bowers' card reject. She's trying to, it's just random stuff coming over the radio. There's nothing you can do about that.
That's
I can't imagine trying to focus on driving.
Swung
and
right through the
that's
inside
in your-
pitch.
You give up.
Better have
Yeah,
no
you give
choice
up.
right
You
there. Take
just
it.
give up
It's a
till they
strike.
figure it
What a
out.
sweet pitch.
I wanted to ask real quick how the Goodwrench deal even came
Swing and
about.
it is, struck him
Because
out.
didn't you go? You left racing, right, David? You
I
went
did.
to Chicago, and then you came back in the early '90s.
Yep.
After
Wait a minute.
7, the
Yeah.
score is 1-0.
You went to Chicago. What'd you do? Why'd you leave?
So I went to the end of the run with Wrangler pretty much when VF bought him out.
Vanity Fair.
And right,
Reiner hit
and
the opposite way to the
they
left side.
when they came in. They offered me a position. I could have stayed, but I had to go lay off like 25 people. Not because they weren't doing their job. It's just because consolidation was going away. And man, I just lost all
Pitch just
appetite
off the
for
plate, 1-0.
being around there. And so that was 88, 89, right in there. And obviously your dad and Richard, they were the Oakland Raiders of the deal by then. I mean, they were hot everywhere we went. We won. And, I mean, 80. I'll never forget 1987 year. It was like
Yanked
magic.
to the left side.
Well, I just had decided that's enough because I had gone and talked to Richard about,
After
you know what we
7.5,
really
the
need to do
score
is,
is 1-0.
if it's going to happen, we need to start,
Bringing in a righty to face
a
the
race
right-handed
team
hitter is a
needs to
good
have their
move
own
because it creates a mismatch
in-house
in
marketing.
pitcher's favor.
That's what we need to start for you guys. Richard was buying into it. Your dad was like, nah, I don't know. I'm not.
Next
So
up, Mike Lowe.
at the time, he wasn't going for it, so I got a chance to go to a marketing agency in Chicago, Frankel and Company. They had all these blue chip clients, and I went in and worked in their sports marketing. But I stayed in touch with your dad. This is where McDonald's
Pitch is
started.
high.
So Frankel did all of McDonald's promotion
Inside.
and marketing. And I got an opportunity at a strategy meeting out of McDonald's to bring up NASCAR. Man, NASCAR is perfect for you guys. The
Pitch said, come and
demographics.
get it, but the batter could
And
not
of course, a lot of
find
the
that
people in
slider.
the room were like, they weren't into it. Well, and I didn't even know this. The president of McDonald's, a
There's a line drive.
huge race fan, it was Ed Rins, and he ended up being team over there.
That it?
Yeah. Well, long story short, we got permission to develop this all-star race team promotion for McDonald's.
The Red
Yeah, I
Sox
remember the little baseball
Yeah,
card. and
I
everything.
called your dad immediately and said, hey, if you can do this McDonald's thing, the game's on. He's like, I'm in.
Worth lays off
So we
outside
got him,
for a
as I remember, it was him, Mark, and Rusty were the first three. But then you could vote at your McDonald's on next year's all-star race team, and you got souvenir cups, and you got this and
This
that.
could be a perfect
So that
time
kept
to
me
get running.
connected with Dale and with Richard from my Wrangler days. And then Richard called me and said, would you come back or be interested in coming back if you had the Goodwrench account?
They did
I
a
said,
good job.
oh man, I'm there tomorrow
Second and third.
if that's the deal. And he said, I'll get back to you, and he did. And so I ended up going right back to Kannapolis. And that's
They pulled the
when I got to
infield in.
start Champion Sports Group, which handled all of that stuff for Dale and Richard, and as it turned out, like I said, Hornaday, Skinner, we did Schrader, we did Dale Jr.
0-2.
It was a
Be good enough to
blast.
score that
What a
run on
AC
third base.
Delco, right? You guys
Yeah.
had the AC Delco
AC
stuff. and that's-
Delco, Papa John's, Napa.
He's laid out. He's got it.
Oh,
What
it
a
was
great
quite the
diving
time.
catch.
Yeah.
The tying
It was
run
quite the
scores.
time, but it wasn't always smooth. I don't know if these
It's
guys
a
know the
1-1
story, because this is a pretty obscure one. But tell me about the time where you needed Dale Earnhardt to meet with GM, and there was, there might have been more important things
Up next,
involved.
Manny
So
Ramirez.
this was,
Here's a
as
guy
it
who
turned
can
out,
hold his own
this
against
would have been
right-handed
the
pitching.
last renewal
0-1 the
contract
count.
that Dale and Richard did with GM. So it was late 90s.
Okay.
And
that was
Richard,
followed.
we'd go to Michigan twice a year. Well, for the first Michigan race, Richard was like, hey, we're going to be in Michigan in a month or so. I want to have a dinner with the GM folks and Dale and Teresa, and let's talk about this renewal and whatnot. And as I remember at that time, they hadn't won a championship in maybe a year or so. And of course, that was a huge dry spell for them in those days. So, but anyway, Richard was a little concerned about getting renewed and whatnot. And so he said, let's have this dinner, let's set it up. So we did. We get the place reserved, and we get all the GM execs lined out and it was going to be Friday night after qualifying. Well, Bill Lovejoy was the head of GM Goodwrench. He was the head guy there. He was going to be in Europe, as I remember, in Brussels and somewhere like that. That week, all the way up to Thursday. So he said, all right, I'll fly back Thursday night from Europe, and we'll meet for dinner with everybody else Friday night. Well, Dale would never commit to the dinner. He would always be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And Richard's starting to get concerned a week or so away from the Rays. Richard's, and he came to me, and of course he comes with one of those typical Childress, you know, when he clears his throat about 3 times, you know something's coming. And he's like, we need to make sure that we get Dale to that dinner. And I'm like, he works for you. He's like, well, I need you to talk to him and just get it confirmed. And I'm like, okay. So this was a lot like the Bud Moore deal. I have to start talking to Dale, and he's like, yeah, I know about it. Yeah, I know about it. Well, he would always say he knew about it, but he never said So Dale always rented a house not that far from the track in Michigan, but near that house was a big bass fishing pond. So you know what Dale did when he went up there. So I'm trying to get Dale to commit, you know, 2 or 3 times that week. He hasn't committed, and Richard's getting antsy. But Friday morning at the track at Michigan, I'm waiting at the truck for him to come in for first practice.
Here we go. This is what it's all about, big boy.
I get to jump on him right away about Dale. You know, Lovejoy's back. He flew back all night last night. What time should we pick you up? Well, I ain't going. I got something else to do. And I'm like, you think that's a good idea? And he didn't really want to hear that. But he's like, David, I'll handle it. I got something to do. And I'm like, all right, well, Richard, you know, kind of gets on me during qualifying about, he said that. He's not coming. He's not, you know. And I'm like,
back up the middle.
I'm in between again, you know, and I'm like, you know. I said, all right, I'll ask him one more time.
Good start to the inning, the leadoff single.
Make sure he's not jacking with us. So practice ends. Well, Dale tries to go out the side door of the truck. And, you know, he's wanting to go to his motorhome and get, or not his motorhome, to this house. He did have his motorhome there, but he was going to stay at his house. His name was fishing. And so I'm 2 steps behind him, taking as big a steps as I can. I'm like, Dale, we gotta you gotta be there. I mean, Lovejoy flew all night. I mean, I'm pleading the case. He turns around. I'll never forget. He turns around and squares off and looks at me like Clint Eastwood. He's like, David, I'll handle it. And then he gives you one of those kind of sideways Dale Earnhardt looks, and I'm like, okay, I'm out. I tapped out. I'm done. I got no more questions from me. Well, he didn't go to the dinner. Richard made up an excuse for him. The dinner was fine. Yeah. And we're all kind of like, you know. So the next morning, the whole GM contingent is at the track during practices, and here comes Prince Charming Earnhardt from practice, and he comes over and he's got his arms around each one of them, and he's hugging them, and he signs everything they want. He's laughing with them, and they're all like, isn't he the greatest? And he's looking at me like, I told you I'd handle it. You know, he never said it, but he's looking at me like, what are you worried about? I got it handled here. And it's like, he got away with it, and he went fishing, you know. And
God, my palms were sweaty just listening to that. I'm so nervous.
We're all sweating.
I understand the dilemma. I understand it.
This is the head guy, too. This isn't some regional guy. This is the man.
David, you know what's coming to my mind on this? When August Bush IV used to phone Dale Jr. right before the race.
Yeah.
Like right before the race. And the Budweiser people are going, Dale's got to take the call. Dale Jr.'s got to take this call. It's August Bush IV. I mean, like, this is the big guy. And we all know that the guy's on his yacht somewhere, and he's just wanting to show off to somebody that, hey, I can call Dale Jr. 2 minutes before he climbs in the car. Yeah, no problem. Watch this. And it was just, and man, the anxiety that would ratchet up amongst everybody in the, you know, and knowing Dale Jr. and these guys, you know, they're trying to get in the zone. They're trying to do that. In Dale Earnhardt's case, he wants to go fishing. But, man, it's so terrifying when those moments happen.
Well, I mean, he was a 7-time champ at the time. He knew I'm sure he knew he was going to get away with it. But the next week, wherever we were, I remember him getting me in one of the little headlocks so he could talk in my ear. And he's like, I probably should have gone to that dinner, shouldn't I? That was it. And that's probably about as close as he would come to saying, hey, maybe I'm sorry or whatever. But
he's batting .275.
He got away with it. But that whole morning when he's signing autographs and he's looking over at me like, I got this, you know, I got them, you know, and I'm like, you put me through all of that crap.
Talk about that house in Michigan. He stayed there for a couple years, and then by the time I started going to Michigan, I think it was in 2000 this happened, I believe. Might have been 99 for the Xfinity. I was there for the Xfinity race, but I can't remember. We were staying in that same house with the Bass Lake in the back. And it was me, Ty Norris, Steve Park, Tony Jr., Tony Sr., a good handful of people all staying in this place. We've been riding these four-wheelers a little bit out in the woods and got kind of bored with that. And they had like this volleyball court, sand volleyball court out next to this this bass pond, big old lake. And we got to running them four-wheelers around that sand volleyball court. And we actually ran so much. It was Ty wasn't there yet. Ty was kind of the GM at the time at DEI. We ran around this court and threw so much sand out that the corners had become banked. We dug down, like we had moved about 4 foot worth of dirt out of this thing and shed it off to the sides to where you kind of went around the corner in the bank, and it had ruined this court.
The corners are hugging
and Ty walked up, and I came around the corner, and he was eating slaw out of a bowl.
Now he goes on strike.
And I came around and slung some sand into his bowl. And he snapped. And we spent, needless to say, we spent the next day fixing fixing that little volleyball court back. But I remember that house you're talking about, and that's what I think about when you're talking about telling the story. We got in big trouble in it.
I think I remember hearing about that later.
Yeah, it was a big deal. We got big.
As I recall, I remember hearing.
If I had been 13, I'd have got the belt. That would have been the belt.
Oh man!
Speaking of that, what do you remember about young Dale Jr.?
Oh God! So I remember the tape story, and I actually did it twice because he did it so easy in my office that time. I can't believe the guy actually pulled that apart.
There's money involved.
So somewhere at some track, when he would come, and this was Wrangler days, his dad, and I was the sponsor then, so I didn't really work for Dale Sr. at that time, but I worked with him, obviously. But if you were around him, you worked for him. You didn't. That's just how it was. But he'd go to practice or whatever, and he'd say, keep an eye on Junior. It's like, yeah, right, of course. And it was easy to keep an eye on him because he'd always be around Jimmy Means' garage, is where you'd find him. But I remember him.
There's some room to make
He was
a
kind
play.
of pestering me
This
or
one's not
pestering
over.
us or
We're
something
going into
at
extra
some
innings.
place. And so I
After
took
9
duct
innings,
tape
it's
this time
tied
and
at
put it
2-2.
together. And
Okay, let's
said,
keep an eye on how this
all right,
closer
let's
holds
see
up
you
here
pull
in the
that
second inning
apart.
of work.
And I think I told him, if you can do that, I'll give you $100.
It was $100.
And he did it. And I didn't pay him at the time. I think I actually finally paid you at Richard Childress's Hall and NASCAR induction a couple years ago.
Gosh, that was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
Did he give you interest?
No interest, but I did finally. But Dale,
Boy, he sat on that one for a long time.
yeah, Dale. I mean, I don't want to embarrass him, but he wanted to be around his dad.
And a strike.
What
and it's
kid
0-1.
didn't, And Dale Senior, he was busy racing, but I think there was a part of him
On the
just
ground.
didn't really know how to
First base.
open up like that. He just didn't. I don't think it happened to him, and so that's kind of what he knew. And I remember when you got
They're making a defensive
sent
change.
to the
In
military
comes the new
school,
first baseman.
not far from Greensboro.
On the ground, gathers it
'Cause
in
I'd
with
see
his
your dad
glove.
once in a while,
They
and he'd
got
come over
him.
there.
The next
I
batter
remember
is
how that
Juan
bothered
Rivera.
him. He said, "I don't know what else to do," and he was, but he was trying to race and he was trying to be a dad.
This guy can be a one-man route. Let's see if we can get something started right here.
It was some tough times, but I remember being around
delivers.
Dale, and his eyes were always wide open, soaking it in. He was taking it all in, and he wasn't a bad
3
kid.
pitches, 3
He
strikes.
was actually a good kid. He wanted to be one of the boys. He wanted to be around all of that. He wanted to be around the race crews.
In extra innings, it's tied
And
at
I think
2-2.
most of the guys, Will and Danny and those guys, and Chocolate, I mean,
Manny Ramirez.
obviously
They're
watched
great.
out for him and loved him to death.
David, you just introduced an element to this military school story that we have never heard, and trust me, we've unpacked this story a lot. But was Dale Earnhardt conflicted a little bit about sending him to military school?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think he was, and look, I'm a parent.
Ball and one
and,
strike.
my boys are grown now, but I can relate to, you get to a point with the kid, like, what am I going to do here?
Takes a pitch high.
And I think, I don't know all the details. I just know that Dale was acting out some, and
On the ground.
and Big Dale was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to race. And, racing was really starting to come around for him. 'Cause this was mid-'80s, if I remember, or maybe early 80s. I don't know, something like that.
Up next with
I
an
was in
RBI in the
Greensboro, so
game,
that-
David Ortiz.
I know it was frustrating him a little bit.
The count's
And,
0-1.
he didn't know what to do, but he was like, I think this is the best for him. And I remember having that conversation about it. Of course, Kelly, I think, went too at that point.
She
Yeah.
did, yeah. She went about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It seemed really short, after I'd been going. Yeah, me and Teresa weren't getting along
Yeah.
at all. I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and me and Teresa had some pretty bad arguments that I think Dad was at the end of his rope on what I needed to mature. And as bad and as scary as going to
The score
military
is
school
tied.
sounded, and as tough as it was the first several weeks to get adjusted to being
Ray
away
is
from
next
home
up.
and around a bunch of strangers, it ended up fixing the problem. So, yeah, to be honest with you, it fixed the problem. So I was just talking to Amy about that the other day. I was like, man, when I was in military school,
The new pitcher,
I handled my own mail. I mailed my own mail. I received it. I scheduled my own haircuts. I handled my dry cleaning. I cleaned my room had to be a particular way. You had to have a 2 fingers between the toothbrush, the toothpaste, the comb, everything. Everything had to be perfect. You had to have 2 fingers in between every hanger in the closet.
That's
Everything had to be facing the same way in the closet. Just the details, right? Of what you had to be responsible for.
Yeah.
It really helped me a lot. So
No, I'm just gonna say I'm sure it did. I know all of us kind of felt for both you kids at that time because
Yeah. Kelly came because she missed me. She seemed to be all about it. Like she thought she couldn't wait to get out of the house, right? I never thought they was gonna send me away.
knowing Kelly, she probably ended up running part of it.
She did. Yeah. You damn right.
But David, with all that said, and Dale Jr., if you guys had the AC Delco as a client, and so you must have been very much part of when Dale Jr. got that ride in the Busch Series in 97, 98. What do you remember? That vantage point has always fascinated me, or that story has always fascinated me because Dale Jr. didn't get the courtesy of a heads up that he was about to get in that ride. In fact, he thought he was unemployed and probably a lifelong service station, manager of some sort. But then he gets that ride. You probably have an interesting vantage point from that as well.
Well, so yeah, as I remember, we didn't get much of a heads up either. It was like Dale Sr. just kind of came out of left field at us. If I remember right, this was like fall of the year, maybe September, October-ish. I remember not having a lot of time to like think this out one night, and Dale Sr. came and said, I think we ought to put Dale Jr. in the car. You'd been running down at the beach or somewhere, and we're like, that's great, so we had to go to GM, and we went to them. They were all, there wasn't much debate about it or anybody that I remember, because was Schrader running AC Delco races then for us? I can't remember.
We had Steve Park in the car in 97, and he was moving to the new Cup car, the new Pennzoil car.
Yeah,
Schrader had been running AC Delco, I believe, at that exact time in ASA.
Okay, yeah, maybe trucks too. Maybe he ran some trucks with AC Delco. But yeah, I remember Big Dale coming and saying, let's put Junior in that car. And none of it took all of us by surprise, but we're all like, man, that could be fun. I mean, marketing, you got senior, junior, let's see what that's like. And so my company got the first assignment of, babysitting Junior and I put Teresa Underdown on him.
Perfect.
She came out of rodeo, and I knew her well, and she was used to handling cowboys. And
This is your first PR girl, right?
Yeah.
Doing PR. She worked for you at Champions.
Correct.
She was assigned to Dale.
Correct. Well, and Senior was like, yeah, I like that. Put her with Junior. I mean, he's like, she won't take any crap off of him, and she won't. And she didn't, and she, they were fine together. But she was all about, you're gonna follow me, son, and as I remember it, and but it was fun. It was fun.
You saw the marketing potential, but did you have any idea of what he brought to the table as far as driving talent?
Oh, I'd never seen him turn a lap myself. I mean, he'd been racing down at the beach or wherever else, maybe Hickory a little or something.
It's out to left
Yeah, he
field.
won a few Busch races.
But yeah,
Makes the catch to record the out.
if Senior wanted you in the car, I mean, that was, that's kind of where Hornaday came from, and Steve Park and all of that. So,
Yeah.
Makes the first pitch.
He had a pretty good track record.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And the people had to trust if this is what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Teresa Underdown was amazing, and I probably made things a lot harder than I should have at times because I didn't really have it figured out. But she was perfect, and I think that when I think back over my career, the certain people that came into my career at certain times, the insight that Dad and you and other people had to put Teresa in that position, and Teresa's personality and her professionalism to steer me the way she did really was a big help. it could have went so many different ways.
Yeah.
It really could have. And putting her in that position was great. So I think about that.
Yeah, Teresa was kind of a no-nonsense. I mean, like I said, she'd come out of rodeo, and she'd been around cowboys for a lot. Well, she grew up in Arizona, and she grew up around it. And she just wasn't afraid. And your dad, I'm pretty sure, just gave her permission to, like, do what you got to do. Keep him out of trouble. And get him where he's supposed to be. And, you know, he didn't like to get up in the mornings and blah, blah, blah.
No.
I
don't believe that.
I know, it's hard to believe.
Gosh almighty.
Yeah.
You would be surprised though, David, these days, dude's up at crack of dawn, man. I mean, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I wake up. I'm first up in the mornings right
now. The whole game changes.
Yeah. I don't know how I'm doing it here lately with quarantine. I've been going to bed at midnight and getting up at 5 every day. I don't know what's going on. It's got to run its course here soon. We'll just fall out.
I'm living in Montana. We've got hardly any of this virus stuff, but you know, we have to be cautious. I mean, we got counties that have more cattle than people, so we're pretty rural. But I go to bed early and I'm up early.
Do you still watch racing?
You know, I watch Daytona, Talladega, and Bristol. And I hate to say it, I watch them more because of the track than I do. And I still know a couple of drivers that are left. I don't know many of them, but it's just not the same for a number of reasons. And I hate what's going on with the sport. I hate the challenges. I've known Steve Phelps a long time. I knew him in a whole other life before this, and I like Steve. I hope it works out because I love the sport. I love Mike Helton to death. I mean, he was a track PR guy and manager when I was cutting my teeth. So was Eddie Gossage and Jeff Bird was so I grew up with a lot of those guys, but I sure missed what it was.
The score is 3-2.
Now I sound like an old dinosaur.
But the reason I ask you that though is because I do think as much as it's changed, a lot of us still benefit from the things that you yourself and your teams did in the 80s and the 90s. And I was talking to J.R. Rhodes the other day, just the way the credentialing process, and you talking about hats. Hats are like currency in a NASCAR garage. You picked up that on day one, right? And a lot of the ideas and stuff, it's intriguing to me to hear your perspective on the sport today because so much has changed. Sponsorship climate's changed. The sponsorship model has changed.
Yeah.
And yet you were a sponsor. You were also the mediator between sponsors. You were the mediator between drivers. And I just wonder, what about today's sport do you think that is just the most different that you either could or could not even deal with today? You know what I'm saying?
I think the personalities are a lot different today. I think, first of all, they're a lot more polished. And I'm not sure that's good. And I'm not putting anybody down for it, but I think that was part of the charm of the sport, certainly in the 80s and 90s. It got tagged as a redneck sport for a long time, but I'd almost give up a finger for something redneck today. It's too slick, it's too polished. I think it's overthought too much. T. Wayne used to say more than anybody, just get in the car and race. He used to say they need to go back and make push a lot of air, and make everybody race and be bunched up together and race. I know it's probably not great for the drivers, but the drivers aren't buying tickets. And this TV thing is going to be a whole different world when they have to renew this time. It's just going to be different. And I know I'm biased, but Dale was carrying the sport, and that's not a put down to anybody else. It was great. Rusty was a big part of it, and a lot of others, Mark and so on. But Dale was carrying that sport for a long time, and I mean, I heard you talk on a couple of other of your shows about how he was kind of the enforcer or the sheriff in the garage area. He was. I mean, between him and Bill Jr., that's where big things happened or didn't happen, or, you know, it was going to do this or going to do that. But he was the sport on the track, too. I mean, he was the persona. And from February 18 of that year, and I've run into hundreds and hundreds of people over my time since leaving that have said, I don't think I've watched a race since, or that's about when I quit watching it. Just like, you know, it just lost something, and there isn't another guy like that right now. The sport really misses that.
The sport misses it, but there's also, you know, things to look back on. And the stuff that you're telling here are incredible.
I remember
I want to.
Yeah, if I could just say, I remember Barney Hall telling me one time, and this was in Wrangler days, so it would have been in the 90s. And he kind of saw. He said, "You'll be able to say someday, we saw the best of this field." And I mean, it was pretty prophetic looking back now. I think we did. I mean, it was incredible because we went from doing autograph sessions with Dale over at that Volusia Mall at a J.C. Penney's when he was signing for store clerks, and that was it. And to where there would be, you know, lines clear around the dealership for 2-3 hours wanting to get into. It changed that much that fast. And
the go-ahead run scores.
I was just so
that hidden RBI, the inning keeps on rolling.
There at the right time, and man, I can't tell you how blessed that I was for that. And it was an incredible time. It really was.
Is it easy to talk about Dale Earnhardt, or is
It
do you
is.
not do it too much?
It is now. It is now.
Right here could be a good time to start the run.
And so when that all happened, my job from that afternoon on for a while was
in extra innings, the Red Sox
to go back
trail by
to
1.
Charlotte and start handling stuff. And so it was media calling, and then it wasn't long after that I told my wife, my boys were really good. They were both born in Concord.
Dirksen looks at a ball high.
I was like, man, well, let me back up. I remember flying home from the appearance somewhere. And this will tell you, I remember him. He either talked on the way home or he slept on the way. It depended. Just one night he was talking to me. My second son had just been born, so it must have been 98 or so. And he was like, David, spend time with those kids. He said, I didn't do it. It's the biggest regret of my life. He said, I didn't do it right when my kids were little, and I wish I had. And I'm sure he never told you guys that. He felt it, and that stuck in my head. And when Dale died, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I got to take these kids home and be around their grandparents, and we moved home.
3 balls and no strikes.
And it was because of what he said.
Terrible time to be
He's
walking
like,
hitters.
you'll never get it back. And he regretted it, and that stuck with me.
Takes a tailing fastball.
But talking about him now,
Right here.
yeah,
Might get two.
it's certainly time heals a lot of
And
stuff.
it's low.
But it was hard for a while. It was, yeah. Yep.
What a privilege this has been. Dale Jr. texted me the other day, or called me, and he said, man, there are stories that David Allen has I have never ever heard.
All right. On a lighter note, David, we have to get to the Palmer story.
Let's hear it.
You can edit out whatever you need, but that's an all-time classic story. I mean, so we would set Dale's appearance schedule every year in January, and we'd get all the requests from whoever, GM and everybody else, we'd get him in October, November, and we'd say, you got to have him in because he's going to pick where he's going when. And the week after New Year's, it happened every year. We'd go to the deer head shop, and that's what we did. There was 2 appearances for GM dealerships, one in Mesquite, Texas, which is the suburb of Dallas, and one in Kansas City. And he said, let's do both of those in the same day. He said, let's do Dallas in the afternoon and Kansas City about 6 o'clock. You know, with his plane, we can make it easy and blah, blah, blah. So we schedule it. We go to Mesquite, do the appearance. Everything is great. We jump on the plane. Collier flies us to Kansas City and we land. We're like way early. And the dealer had met us and picked us up. And Dale says, man, I'm hungry. Can we get something to eat? Like, yeah, he said, I know a great steakhouse. I know the guy that owns it. I'll call him. We'll, you know, so we get over there. It's like 4 o'clock. And nobody cooks there. They're cooking our steaks as we arrive.
Jesus Christ!
We get in, a couple cold beers. There's probably 4 or 5 of us in the group. A couple dealer guys. Collier was Mike, his pilot, and I can't remember who was flying second seat. But anyway, we're all there and we're having beers, and they bring out this big tray of jalapeno poppers stuffed with cream cheese and some kind of mint jelly or something. I mean, they tasted like candy. They were like, wow, these are awesome. And Dale's hitting them pretty hard and, you know, enjoying his beer, and he's talking to the dealer, and, you know, he was just really laid back and everything was great. So we have dinner and we head over to, the next appearance is going to be at a mall. We come to the mall, we go in this side door of the mall. We can see way down the probably 600, 700, 800 yards or whatever, the crowd that's gathered for the appearance. And then they're all lined up and waiting. And we're headed down this long hallway. And I'm trying to get a little bit ahead of him just so I can kind of see how everything's laid out and make sure we're not going to get in a trap or something. And we get about halfway down the hall, and he's like, Grillo. And my nickname was Grillo. And he's like, Grillo. Grillo. And I'm turning around, and he's like, come here. And I go back there, and he's trying to talk to me without talking to anybody else. And he's like, I need to find a bathroom. That's exactly what you saw right there. And, you know, I'm thinking, no. And then he says, now. And he heavy emphasis on that. And he said,
Damn!
Working.
That was a good pitch.
And now I was like, oh, okay. Well, not too far down the hallway before we got to the people, there's one of these mall restrooms, and, you know, men and women's side. So we get up there, and I've clued one of the dealer guys in on what's up. And Dale, we get there, and Dale says, better clear everything out, clear everybody out. And I'm like, yeah, like, so we go in there, and we're like, we need all you folks to leave for a minute. We need to get out, you know. We have no authority to do anything, but we're just going to let everybody out of the restroom.
We need everybody to clear.
Yeah, and quickly, we need you to go. Well, so on their way out, they see who's standing there, waiting to come in. And of course, you know, they know who he is. And so, you know, we got everybody out. He goes in, he takes care of the popper issue. And he comes back out, and he's got a mini autograph session that he's got to sign before we ever get to the big one. And I'm just freaking out now, thinking this is going to hit him again right in the middle of the session or something. But fortunately, it didn't. It hit us on the way back to the airport. We had to make an emergency stop one more time, but. Oh man, I tell you, I never let him forget that. I laughed so much on the way home about the popper, the great popper incident. He's like, I need a restroom now.
That's the go-ahead run.
Yeah.
Those stories are classic, and that one right there is one where he got out well. Dale Earnhardt
Oh,
did.
yeah.
There was another one where he didn't fare so well, and that had to do with his Atlanta Braves buddy.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell Dale and Mike about that one?
So, in my Wrangler days, I had met Rick Sutcliffe, who was a pitcher for a lot of years in the bigs, and mostly with the Cubs. He does ESPN now. And through him, I had met Jody Davis, who was his catcher. And Jody grew up in Dahlonega, Georgia, right down by the Elliots. So he's a big racer. Jody is all over me about, man, I'd like to go to race. So I started taking him. He met Dale, and they became big pals. And they ended up deer hunting together a lot. They might have even had a deer lease together at one time, I'm not sure. They hunted a lot together. Alabama, Texas. Well, there was might still be going on. There was a big deer hunting thing that a guy named Jackie Bushman would do down in Montgomery, Alabama, called Buckmasters. And he would invite these celebs, mostly jocks. Bo Jackson went every year, and Dale and Jody went a lot, and country singers would go and whatnot. For whatever reason, Sut got invited to go one year with Dale and Jody. Sut is the least hunting guy you ever met in your life. I mean, he just isn't a hunter. But he'd go for the good time. He was always up for it. And Rick was one of the biggest pranksters in baseball. The stuff that he did to people is kind of legendary. And him and I can't remember the other guy, the old-time pitcher. Anyway, they go, and Sut's down there with him. First morning out, Sut falls asleep in his deer blanket, and Dale catches him sleeping. Scares the crap out of him and messes with him and all of that. Well, so the game is on from day one now. The Sut's bound and determined he's going to get back and get even and all that. And about day 3, actually after dinner in the evening, I think they had Jody's truck. They decide they're going to take a few beers and spotlight, and they're going to go out and drive around, scout for deer for the next morning. So they're out riding around, and Lord knows what was said. I would have loved to have heard all the stuff that was said during that trip. But they're riding around, and Dale's driving, of course. You didn't dare drive and let him ride.
He's had a rotten day so far.
So you let him drive. He's driving, and they're tearing around through these old country roads, spotting deer, and, drinking beer and whatnot. And Dale's like, man, I think we got a flat, a low tire.
There's strike 2.
So they stopped. Sure enough, one of the tires, I think it was a back tire, was low. And so Dale tells Jody, so, well, get your jack out, get your stuff.
3 pitches, 3 strikes, make it easier net part.
So while Dale and Jody are getting stuff out of the back of the truck, Sut decides he's got to pee from all this beer drinking.
He's batting 29.
He goes over
with 7 home runs.
He's all over the tire. They got a chain. It's dark. And, so Dale got the jack. He's going to change it. So he gets over there and boom, he's changing and boom, and 5 minutes or so, the tires changed. Throwing the other one in, and he's got mud all over his hands. He's like, where did he get the mud? Where did this mud come from? Because I guess it was it was really dry. Well, they finally figured out what Sut had done. And so Dale runs him down and has a handful of the mud and, down his shirt and rubs it all over him. It's kind of like, National Lampoon goes deer hunting with those guys. That trip. Yeah, he got even with Sut for that thing.
I don't know. I don't think I could ever feel like I'd gotten him back.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
Pea mud.
Well, man, David, I appreciate you coming on. These stories have been great, and I appreciate you coming on here and telling us about them and sharing with us some of your history. And you've been such a great friend to me and to Kelly, and continue to, as Dad said, look after us. You kind of continue to keep an eye on us, and I really, really appreciate that. So you mean a lot to me, and I know that everybody that listens to this podcast is going to really enjoy these stories. They're going to have more questions probably than answers, but that's good. That's good. We'll try to answer them for them. But appreciate you, buddy, and I hope you're being well and taking care of your family.
Well, I am. I got a great, like I said, everything I have probably because of your dad and Richard, and I just love you guys, you and Kelly and Carrie, and you guys have all done so well. Your dad would be so proud, and I want you to please tell your grandma Martha hello. I just love her to death. She'll only know me by Brillo. I don't think she ever did know my name.
Where did that nickname come from?
Whoa.
So, Walt Garrison, who played for the Dallas Cowboys, he's one of my closest friends, and it came from rodeo, and we had to go do an appearance thing at Zion Frontier Days. We had a pick-up luncheon with a bunch of people in town. In those days, my hair was really curly, and I just didn't comb it. I just kind of let it go. And so I had to
I remember that.
hat in my head, and he got up and said something about Brillo's hair was done by wearing blender or something like that, and it just stuck from there.
Go back.
I knew you as Brillo for the first probably 15, 20 years.
See if you can take advantage
Oh,
of the
yeah.
situation right here.
I know that people in
You cut the hair.
well,
What a
yeah,
game.
it's
Holy
thinner,
shit.
But listen, this
Best
has been
loss
awesome. I
of
love
all
you,
Yes, sir.
time.
and I'm so proud of you. And I'm proud of the dad you're becoming, and all of that. So,
Yes, sir.
yep.
All right, well, I hope to be able to see you in person soon.
Yep.
And
Yep. I'm gonna take you on an elk hunt with your bow before I die. So
I'm ready.
we're doing
Me
it.
and my bow are ready to go.
We're doing it.
All right.
It's addictive.
I've done it one time already. I went with Carrie a couple years ago.
I know. I arranged for that place, but I want to take you and where we'll have fun. When I'm taking Will Lynn lately, and it's been a blast. We're having.
Dang, I
a
bet
blast.
that is fun. I'll go with you anytime you want. You let me know.
And you guys too, whenever you want to go.
Mike,
We're
will go.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. I've never been elk hunting. Aren't you the president of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation?
I was for 11 years. I retired.
Okay.
And now I'm just living here west of Billings, and I'm hunting and fishing and watching my kids grow up. So.
Awesome.
Well, it's been a privilege. Thank you so much for coming on our show. It has been an honor to finally get to talk to you. And man, Dale Jr. wasn't kidding. Boy, you got some stories.
I got some other ones we can tell in the truck somewhere, but I would never tell them on tape. So.
That's perfect. All right, David. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be in touch.
Yep.
At a younger age, many of us don't really understand how important building credit is. It can be confusing. One of the big things is, how the heck do you even start? Now, there's a new way to build credit. Meet Self. Self's credit builder account lets you responsibly build credit